Welcome to the Precalculus class. Previous session we studied definition of function, definition of composite function. Then we learn basic function and transformation of graphs. Now we're gonna dive in more function like quadratic, polynomial, exponential and log and rational functions. First, we're going to study quadratic function. So here is a couple of characteristics about quadratic function. So first, before we discuss characteristic quadratic function, we should recognize quadratic function three different forms: standard form, vertex form, factor form. Second is we have to understand how to find the vertex, axis of symmetry, xy intercept, maximum minimum of functions. Finally, you know how to sketch the graph of quadratic function using key features. Let's start quadratic function. Here is quadratic function. Start with the general form y equal ax squared plus bx plus c. Power is 2. A is leading coefficient. Ax squared plus bx plus c. We call this as general form. Second, vertex form. Vertex form is ax minus h squared plus k. They represent vertex h and k. We're going to talk about it later. Third one is factor form. Y equal a, or a is leading coefficient, x minus r1, x minus r2. You have C different between three forms: general form, vertex form, factor form. Each form has their own characteristic or features. Let's see how gonna use different form to figure out the characteristic of quadratic function. Before we talking about characteristic of quadratic function, let's quick review the transformation of function, transformation of graph. Let's start parent function y equal x squared. So let's do horizontal shift. Shift 1 unit to the right. How gonna change this function after translation horizontally? So that's gonna be y equal x minus 1 square. Move to the 1 to the right. Move 1 unit to the right. Second is refract across the x-axis. Then we're gonna have put the negative in front of parentheses. Y equal negative x minus 1 squared. Now, let's do vertical translation. Shift 4 units up, which meaning is you have add 4. Y equal negative x minus 1 squared plus 4. Now I'm gonna give the two graphs. First one is parent function. Second is the final function. Purple is parent function right here, guys. That's the y equal x squared. What is vertex? Vertex is 0 and 0. Last function is after all transformation you have, vertex gonna be 1 and 4. We're coming from 1 and 4. Move to the right 1 unit, go up the 4 units up. So vertex gonna be changed 0 and 0 to 1 and 4. Now we're gonna analyze vertex form with this transformation idea. Now, let's analyze graph of final function we had from the previous slides. So very carefully see, you already know we call this is vertex form. Can you notice it? Here is -1 in front of parentheses, that's this side leading coefficient. Here is one transformation to the right left. 4 is up and down. We call this is vertex form HK. That's very important information. So let's figure it out. What's it mean by A, leading coefficient? A, what is this side? Look at this graph and the leading coefficient here. A gonna be here. Negative, right? Here is A gonna be negative. Everyone see that A gonna be negative here. We're gonna say, look at the graph. Graph is go up, go down, open down, downward. We're gonna say it. Second information, vertex. How gonna change the vertex? Look at this. 1 and 4, right? Vertex gonna be 1 and 4. See? 1 is coming here, 4 is there. Second is axis of symmetry, meaning is we're gonna see some vertical lines split this quadratic function. That gonna be axis of symmetry is coming from x value of vertex. That's axis of symmetry, that's the definition. Axis of symmetry, that's the vertical line, left side, right side of quadratic function, exactly same shape. So how to write the vertical line? X equals something that vertical line pass through x equal 1. So axis of symmetry gonna be x equal 1. Another way how to find the axis of symmetry, x value of vertex. Third one is maximum minimum. Maximum minimum, we are talking about y value. This one is, look at this graph, peak point is right here, vertex, maximum minimum y value. What's the y value here? That's gonna be 4, right? Everyone see that that's a 4, that's the y value. Where do you find the maximum? That's also can come from the vertex. Y value of vertex. How do you know that's the maximum? Leading coefficient negative, okay? Oh, x-intercept. Of course, here is x-intercept. Here is x-negative 1 and 0. Another one is 3 and 0. That's the x-intercept. Another important information here, guys. This is axis of symmetry. That's x equal 1 in the middle of x-intercept. 1 and 2, 1 and 2. That's really important information for quadratic function. Fourth, y-intercept. Can you find the y-intercept right here? That's gonna be 0 and 3. Now, let's thinking about domain. Domain is quadratic function is Euler number. Guys, can you see the Euler number? That's the Euler number. Negative infinity, positive infinity. Range, you say maximum y value is 4. All the graph go down. So range is gonna be negative infinity to the 4. Very careful, here is a bracket because 4 is included on the graph. Do you understand how to analyze quadratic function, everyone? So main thing is here, you should know what is leading coefficient, positive, negative, what is vertex, then you can find most of the information about quadratic function. Here is a summary of vertex form of quadratic function. First, you have check the leading coefficient, okay? You should check the sign. Leading coefficient is positive. Graph gonna be upward, okay? Leading coefficient negative, guys. Negative, guys, very careful. Leading coefficient negative, that's gonna be downward. Guys, see that? Upward, downward. This one depending on sign of leading coefficient. Second, this is a translation. Go to the right H, go up, down K. So very careful here. H and K is represent the vertex. Vertex. Another one is a vertex. Here is positive, leading coefficient positive, leading coefficient negative. HK represent the vertex. Does it make sense? Now, X value of vertex, from there you can also find axis of symmetry, X equal H. That's the vertical line. Here is the same thing, guys. Look at this. Here is a axis of symmetry, X equal H. Next one is, next one is, this one is minimum because A is positive. What is minimum value? That's the Y value of vertex, guys. Make sure it. Here is minimum, leading coefficient positive. Here is leading coefficient negative. You're going to have a maximum. All graphs go down, right? So Y value of vertex, that's the maximum. Guys, remember that maximum, minimum is Y value. Also, minimum, maximum are determined by sign of leading coefficient. Let's sketch the quadratic function with the vertex form. Guys, here, remember this form. What if first you have check H gonna be, here is a positive one, form is, guys, thinking about transformation, this is go to the left one, left meaning is negative 1, this is go down, down meaning is K value is negative value. That's you make sure, clearly understand how you can find the vertex point, okay? What's the leading coefficient? Leading coefficient number here, right? That's number gonna be positive, which meaning is graph gonna be upward. That's gonna be upward. Then you can guess that's what they're asking next, okay? Vertex is negative 1 and negative 8. X value, Y value of vertex. They have a lot of information there. Axis of symmetry. That's gonna be vertical line, but you can get the X equal negative 1. Make sure that's the vertical line coming from X value of vertex. Next one is maximum, minimum. That's the upward. We're gonna have a minimum. Maximum, minimum value gonna be Y value of vertex. That's gonna be negative 8. Now, x-intercept. Very, very tricky question, right? X-intercept, you need plug in Y equals 0. Y equals 0. You're gonna solve this one. 0 equal 2x plus 1. Square minus 8 equals 0. Here is square root property. You can use it or foil everything, then you can factor it. It's up to you. I'm gonna use square root property. I'm gonna move 8 to the other side. 2x plus 1 square equal 8. Divide by 2 both sides. That's gonna be x plus 1 square equal 4. Then we're gonna square root. When you square root, don't forget the positive, negative. That's gonna be x plus 1 equal positive, negative. Don't forget it, guys. Positive, negative 2. So you have x plus 1, 2. X plus 1, negative 2. Now you find x equal 1. You subtract 1 both sides. X equal negative 3. Now you find x-intercept gonna be 1 and 0, negative 3 and 0. Guys, understand this one? Now let's find the y-intercept, which value is 0. X value is 0. Plug in x equals 0, which meaning is f of 0. 2 parentheses 0 plus 1 square minus 8. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 square is 1. So this is 2 times 1 minus 8. 2 times 1 is 2. Minus 8 gonna be negative 6. Y-intercept is 0 and negative 3. That's all you need to sketch the quadratic function here. Leading coefficient, vertex, x-intercept, y-intercept. Based on this information, we're gonna sketch the quadratic function. Let's sketch it, guys. Upward, axis of symmetry, that's the vertical line. Vertex, x-intercept, y-intercept. Okay, let's sketch it. Vertex, -1 and -8. Here is x-intercept, 1 and 0, -3 and 0. Y-intercept, 0 and -6. Connected all the dots. Guys, here, when you connected this dot, you have graph of quadratic function. X equal -1, that's the axis of symmetry. Everyone clearly see that? Now, what is domain? Domain of quadratic function is always only a number. Range. Look at this graph, guys. Look at this graph. What is minimum point right here? Range is going to be, they talking about y value, right? Right here. What is minimum of y value? That's -8. All graphs go up. What is going to be range, guys? That's going to be -8 to infinity because all y value is go up. So that's the range of this function. Now we want to sketch the graph of quadratic function in factored form, guys. This is a factored form. A times x minus r1, x minus r2. This is different from what you did in previous slides. Previous slides we have vertex form. This is something times something. So let's check it out. How gonna do it? First, you have leading coefficient, positive, negative. Here is 1 here, guys. In front of parentheses, 1 is positive. This is a positive. So you know this graph gonna be upward. Second is, let's find x-intercept form. X-intercept first because we cannot find vertex right away from the function. Let's find x-intercept. Intercept gonna be y equals 0, right? So 0 equal x plus 1, x minus 5. This is a factored form. We can find x value very quickly. So x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. So x plus 1 equals 0 meaning is x equals -1. X minus 5 equals 0 meaning is x equals 5. So we find -1, 5. X-intercept gonna be -1 and 0. 1 and 0, I plot it, 5 and 0, 5 and 0. See? So that factor form is really help us to find x-intercept quickly. Axis of symmetry. Guys, remember that? Axis of symmetry is middle. We're going to find the middle point between the x-intercepts. Can you see that here? What is middle? Total distance is 6. So half gonna be 3. So here is a 5. 1, 2, 3. Left side, 1, 2, 3. The axis symmetry pass through this x value, right? So axis of symmetry is middle of x-intercept. That's x equal 2. So we can find axis symmetry middle. Average of 2 points, -1 plus 5 divided by 2. That's gonna be 4 divided by 2. X equal to, exactly right. X equal 2. That's gonna be axis of symmetry. Vertex, guys, vertex. But axis of symmetry goes through vertex, x value of vertex. So at least we find x value of vertex. That's gonna be h gonna be 2. Now we have find the k value. That's the y value of vertex. How gonna find it? We know the x value, which meaning is here is a function. We know the x value, guys. X value is 2. Now we wanna find the k value. You just plug in x equal 2. Because x value of vertex is 2. So k value gonna be, guys, f of 2. So when you plug in 2 is there, 2 plus 1, 2 minus 5, this is 3, this is negative 3. So which meaning is 3 times negative 3, that's the negative 9. Guys, make sense? So you find it. Vertex gonna be 2 and negative 9. 2 and negative 9, right? 2 and negative 9, exactly. That's vertex point on the axis of symmetry. What do you say? Upward, right? You go have, here it is right there. X-intercept, Y-intercept, vertex. Right now we have find the Y-intercept, right? Y-intercept, X equals 0. You plug in X equals 0 here. So f of 0 gonna be 0 plus 1, 0 minus 5. This is 1, this is negative 5 times it. That's gonna be negative 5, guys. 1 times negative 5, that's the negative 5. So find it, negative 5, here 0 and negative 5 right there. You connect the 4 dot, then you have graph of quadratic function. Next one is general form. So we studied vertex form, quadratic function with vertex. Second, we studied quadratic function in factored form. Factored form, even factored form, when you have factored form, we can find the vertex pretty easy, right, guys? Now, general form is pretty tough. So there is no information about vertex here. How can I find the vertex from this form? A equal ax squared plus bx plus c, okay? So here is I'm gonna derive the formula for vertex form, okay, guys? What is main focus here? Find x value of vertex. If you find x value of vertex, you can find y value of vertex when you plug in x value in the function. So let's try to find it. So vertex gonna be h comma k equal f of h. So our main focus is find x value of vertex. That's meaning h. So let's here it is. I'm gonna drive how gonna find the vertex, x value of vertex by using quadratic formula, guys, okay? Now, h gonna be how gonna find the middle point of x-intercept, right? X-intercept, how gonna find x-intercept? You're gonna solve the quadratic equation when y value is 0. So I want to find x-intercept, which meaning is y value is 0. So this is quadratic equation. When you have general form of quadratic equation, we should use quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is two answers. One is negative b plus square root b square minus 4ac over 2a. That's one solution. Second solution, negative b minus square root b square minus 4ac over 2a. So we need the middle point of x-intercept. So add together R1 plus R2, guys. First one is here, second one here. When you add it, same denominator. So what do you see? This one. Here is positive, here is negative. You can cancel out. So what do you have? Negative b, negative 2b, denominator 2a. 2 is cancel out. You have negative b over a. H value is middle point. Middle point gonna be what? R1 plus R2 divided by 2. That's the middle point. So negative b over a divided by 2. That's gonna be divided by 2 is times 1.5. So you have negative b over 2a. So h gonna be negative b over 2a. K. Previous slides, we find the vertex when general form is given, guys. Here is general form. General form is y equal ax squared plus bx plus c. That's the general form. We have function f of x, negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. So first, let's decide leading coefficient. A value is here, that's the negative, which meaning is A is negative, you know that's the downward. Second is vertex. How can find the vertex? When they give general form. HK, AB, we need A, B, right? A gonna be negative 1, B gonna be 2. So when you have A and B value, you can find the H gonna be negative B over 2A, which meaning is B gonna be 2, A gonna be negative 1, negative 2 over 2 times negative 1. Negative 2, denominate 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, negative 2 over negative 2, that's the same number, cancel out, H equal 1. Now we find X value of vertex. What do you need? K value. K value is, you're gonna plug in H equal 1 in the function, we can find Y value of vertex. Let's find the K. K equal F of 1. So let's plug in the 1 here. Negative, very careful. Here is x equal 1, parenthesis 1 square plus 2 times 1 plus 3. 1 square is 1. That's gonna be negative 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 3. That's the whole thing is 2 plus 3 is 5. Minus 1 is 4. Oh, now we find the vertex. 1 and 4. Guys, make sense? Let's do x-intercept. X-intercept y equals 0. Let's set the 0 equal negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. Reading coefficient to negative, I'm gonna move left side. Everything, I wanna move everything to the left. That's gonna be x squared minus 2x minus 3. Guys, make sense? Then factor it. How can factor this one? X minus 3, x plus 1 equals 0, which meaning is x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0. So, x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0, which meaning is x equals 3, x equals negative 1. So, x-intercept, negative 1 and 0, 3 and 0. What else do we have to do? Sketch the graph. Y-intercept, right? Y-intercept, x equals 0. Let's plug in x equals 0 here. F of 0, negative 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 3. This is 0. This is 0. So y value gonna be 3. So y-intercept, 0 and 3. Let's sketch this function, guys. We find all the information to sketch the graph. Leading coefficient to negative downward, vertex 1 and 4, right? Vertex 1 and 4. X-intercept, negative 1 and 0, 3 and 0. Y-intercept, 0 and 3. So connect these dots, then you're going to sketch the graph. Let me ask of domain. Domain is only a number, right? Negative infinity, positive infinity range. This time is maximum. Maximum is 4. Range gonna be negative infinity to the 4, guys, okay? Let's understand this question first. Quarterback threw the ball with the initial velocity of 72 feet per second at the angle of 25 degrees. The height of ball can be modeled by h of t. Guys, clearly understand? H gonna be represent time. Ht gonna be height. Negative 16t squared plus 30t plus 5, that's quadratic function. So look at this one. Here is a ball. He gonna throw it. Then they gonna reach the maximum height, then come down to ground. So first question here, they ask, determine the time at which the ball will be at the maximum height. So look at this graph, guys. Maximum height right there. X-axis represents the time. That's the time when the ball reached the maximum height. Second question is determine the maximum height of ball. Where is the maximum height? Maximum height gonna be right here. That's the maximum height. So let me ask this question different way. What do you have to find it to find the time and maximum height? What do you need? We need to find this point, right? That's the vertex point. This is gonna be 0.94, 9.06. How am I gonna find this point? Let's find the vertex point with quadratic function. Now, let's find it, guys. Here is quadratic function of height. T represents time. So we know that we're gonna find the vertex point. How gonna find the vertex point? H and K. If you find H, we can find the K value. H gonna be negative B over 2A. What is A? What is B? A gonna be negative 16. B gonna be 30, right? So H gonna be negative B over 2A, which meaning is negative 30 over 2 times negative 16. 2 times 16 is negative 32. Negative 30 over negative 32, negative cancel out. When you use calculator, you're gonna find the time. H gonna be 0.94 seconds. If you got the negative, your computation is wrong because H represent time, guys, here, okay? This is X value of vertex, guys, okay? What is maximum height? Maximum height gonna be, you plug in the H in here. So that gonna be, K gonna be F 0.94, which meaning is negative 16, 0.94 square plus 30, 0.94 plus 5. 5. When you use calculator, you can find the maximum height, 9.06 feet. Do you understand this equation, everyone? This one is talking about maximum height, meaning is you have to find the y value of vertex. To find the y value of vertex, you need to find x value of vertex. What do you learn this session, guys? We learn quadratic function, f of x, ax squared plus bx plus c. That's the general form, but we also learn vertex form, factored form. When you have this quadratic function, it represents parabola. Graph gonna be parabola. So A, reading coefficient, positive, open upward, and it will have minimum. A is negative, downward, they gonna have maximum. Also, how gonna find the vertex? Negative B over 2A. Y value of vertex, you plug in X value of vertex. Then axis of symmetry gonna be X equal negative BA. That's what I studied this session.